Yabba dabba doo, we are on the air, and Scooby Doo and the gang are really thrilled about that, which is a complete non sequitur and babbling. How are you this morning, Stephen?
I'm doing pretty well. Trying to follow the themes that we got going today.
Well, it's post Super Bowl, and I find it interesting how many people who are completely unconnected to either one of the two teams are feeling either buoyant or absolutely deflated on the day after. And it surely tells us a lot about our human experiences that we can get ourselves worked into a frenzy over a ball that is being passed around by a bunch of high paid guys out there. And reducing it down to a Course in Miracles thought, it is these meaningless thoughts are showing us a meaningless world.
Yeah, I was just having the thought last night. Well, two thoughts actually. The first one was I thought the Falcons were definitely going to win um, when I checked the game. But the second thought I had was, what if we use all the energy that goes into the Super Bowl and put it into an idea like forgiveness?
Well, but that would be like this instantaneous ascension, and there is a part of us that holds on to that idea that I need my body, I need my identity, I need to be separate and over here, and you need to stay over there, because that fine line that defines who we all are is something that must be preserved at all cost.
Yeah, and if they ever do contact, it's going to be through thrashing bodies together on the field.
Yeah, and that there's more than one or two people floating around us in the world that are quite excited with that image. But nonetheless, it is all a part of a process of unfolding, and eventually everyone who is rooting for the other guy or rooting for their guy or whatever, we're all going to come together and recognize that there's only one of us here. And that's kind of a nice lead into this part of the course that we're looking at, the guiltless world. And we had been dialoguing about the first couple of sections of this, and now we're down to the fear of redemption. And boy, do we see that all around us in this world right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think we left off with line 9 on the fear of redemption, which is section 3 of chapter 13. So do you want to start off on that text?
Right. And where we're starting off at is this first pronoun here, him, is referring to God's Son. And that is you and me and everybody in the world around us. And so this starts off saying, save him from his illusions, that you may accept the magnitude of your Father in peace and joy. So we're getting a strong prompt here to recognize that everything we do for everybody else, we are in fact doing for ourselves. It goes on with, but exempt no one from your love, or you will be hiding a dark place in your mind where the Holy Spirit is not welcome. And that's pretty black and white too. So, you know, for those of you who say, I can never forgive you, or I can forgive you, but I will never forget, you're holding back, and you're keeping that little black hole, that little gravity well alive and stable, and that's keeping the presence of God out. And thus you will exempt yourself from his healing power, for by not offering total love, you will not be healed completely. Healing must be as complete as fear, for love cannot enter where there is one spot of fear to mar its welcome. So even though we may imagine that we are engaged in love and surrounded by love and feeling love, the true depth of love is something that you probably have never really fully experienced, because if you're holding any dark spot in the back of your consciousness about anybody else, then you have blocked that door and sealed it off. So if you want to know what love is really all about, you're going to have to kick it up a notch. You're going to have to take it to that next level and be willing to extend that love to everybody, regardless of who they may appear to be in this mortal world.
Right. You want me to continue with this next one, 10?
Yes, absolutely.
You who prefer separation to sanity cannot obtain it in your right mind. You were at peace until you asked for special favor, and God did not give it, for the request was alien to him. And you could not ask this of a father who truly loved his son. Therefore you made of him an unloving father, demanding of him what only such a father could give. And the peace of God's son was shattered, for he no longer understood his father. He feared what he had made, but still more did he fear his real father, having attacked his own glorious equality with him. Yeah, that's a really beautiful and interesting line at the end where it says, more did he fear his real father. To me, because it hits on that core issue, which is the belief that we've separated from our true source. And that's where our core fear lies. And I think about a lot of the times when people talk about what they're afraid of in this world. I'm afraid of this or that. And how this really ties it in back to that root of the issue.
Yes, and that really is the only problem that has to be solved. That's the only one problem that anybody has. You know, your problem is not a low bank account, or, you know, a flat tire on your car, or a lover that cheats on you. Your real problem is that you imagine that you became separate from God, and that is a situation that is not redeemable, that cannot be turned around. So really what we're being encouraged to do is to pursue God first. As Jesus said, seek ye the kingdom of heaven, and all of these things shall be added unto you. So all of your needs will be filled. That doesn't mean all of your desires will be met, because some of your desires, let's face it, are really caca if you actually look at it from that level of truth. But if you put God first, you know, reclaiming your identity in God, reclaiming your sonship with God, or daughtership, or once again, rhetorically, whatever, that is the one goal that we all have. That is the one thing that we seek to achieve.
Right, totally. Continuing with text line 11.
Yes. In peace, he needed nothing and asked for nothing. In war, he demanded everything and found nothing. For how could the gentleness of love respond to his demands, except by departing in peace and returning to the Father? If the Son did not wish to remain in peace, he could not remain at all. See, in other words, that's where we stepped out of heaven. That's where we stepped out of the ecstatic experience that we were having of completeness. For a darkened mind cannot live in the light, and it must seek a place of darkness where it can believe it is where it is not. God did not allow this to happen, yet you demanded that it happen, and therefore believed that it was so. So this chaotic world on the verge of who knows what, nuclear meltdown or whatever, this whole thing was created as a place of darkness where we could escape from the light. And if you're out there running around imagining that you're going to turn this realm into heaven, I would say that's probably going to be a lifelong pursuit without any real justifiable rewards. Because the truth is, as the light is brought into your mind, this world starts to fade. and the nothingness, the non-existence of it, becomes completely and fully embedded in your awareness. And that's what we're doing with the Course in Miracles, is taking teeny tiny steps every day toward opening up the windows and throwing off the shutters and allowing some light to filter into this dark, dark world we've created.
Yeah. And so much I feel that it is a remembering more than anything, and that the process back to remembering. I was just reading in a different section of the Course today about how when God first created the Holy Spirit, it was the forgiveness was accomplished the instant that it was set out by the Holy Spirit, because it was so easy for the Holy Spirit. So if we just accept that vision with the Holy Spirit, then it can be accomplished just as easy through us. It doesn't have to be a difficult process.
Exactly. It's kind of just like, you know, shedding skin. It's taking off your clothing, your raiment that you have wrapped yourself in, the ashes and rags of this mortal existence, dust unto dust.
Yeah. And so number 12, right?
That's correct.
To single out is to make alone, and thus make lonely. God did not do this to you. Could he set you apart, knowing that your peace lies in his oneness? He denied you only your request for pain, for suffering is not of his creation. Having given you creation, he could not take it from you. He could but answer your insane request with a sane answer that would abide with you in your insanity. And this he did. For no one who hears his answer but will give up insanity. For his answer is the reference point beyond illusions, from which you can look back on them and see them as insane. But seek this place and you will find it, for love is in you and will lead you there.
Well, that's a very nice assurance that we are given, that all of the things that we imagine to be real are in fact simply our own little fantasy that we're having, our own little mushroom trip, you know. And this really is how this world parallels itself into multiple different levels of this belief in separation. We all have our need for having a little downtime and having some recreational drugs and alcohol, some this and that, believing that we might escape. But the morning after, it's kind of grim. And so perhaps getting away from looking for a drug for relief, we might be wanting to put our attention on finding relief in that pure light that lifts us out of all the darkness that we were imagining.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that we use things like drugs and alcohol and other substances in this realm, because in a way it's 2 times removal from reality. once for being here, and then once for doing a substance to what the Course calls a magic, a magic thought or magic substance to take us even further.
Yeah, it just creates a bigger and bigger gulf.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's fascinating, and then that's the end for that section. So if you want to dialogue more about that, we can. But I know you have your session in a half hour. So
well, why don't we start off with section 4 here? We'll kind of leap forward, because this is kind of fun too, is looking at that whole idea of time. It says the function of time. And now the reason why you are afraid of this course should be apparent. For this is a course on love, because it is about you. You have been told that your function in this world is healing, and your function in heaven is creating. The ego teaches that your function on earth is destruction, and you have no function at all in heaven. So the ego is completely estranging us from our true self, from the God that created us and who is longing for us to return back and participate in the ecstasy of eternity. It goes on to say, it would thus destroy you here and bury you here, leaving you no inheritance except the dust out of which it thinks you were made. As long as it is reasonably satisfied with you, as its reasoning goes, it offers you oblivion. When it becomes overtly savage, it offers you hell. And it's interesting how, when I get out there and every once in a while have dialogue with people who are really anchored in the dark side of the Christian experience, they really get worked into a frenzy about this idea of hell, where there is eternal damnation. And, you have to wonder about that. Would a loving God create a set of conditions where he would take his creation and throw it into a pit of eternal torment, eternal fear, eternal savagery? And that's really what the ego wants us to believe. And it approaches us from just about every angle that it can, from just about every religious venue that it can. We see the similar thoughts in the Quran, the Old Testament, and a lot of Christian theology. And yet that is so anathema to God's nature that it's really not even worth discussing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the weird thing is that the ego's realm and its use of time may seem like an eternity. And maybe that's where that idea came from, because even one moment in hell is far too long for the Son of God. So looking at it from that viewpoint, the ego's, when it's reasonably satisfied with you, as reasoning goes, it offers you oblivion. I think that really capitalizes on how there's this sort of like cultural mob mentality within the ego, where as long as you're doing what you're told and doing what it wants you to do, which is neglecting God's will, then it's okay with you. But if you ever question that, it'll get angry with you.
Oh, yes, and it will definitely light you up with all kinds of boogeymen.
Right.
So, do you want to continue there with section 2?
Yes. Yet neither oblivion nor hell is as unacceptable to you as heaven. Your definition of heaven is hell and oblivion, and the real heaven is the greatest threat you think you could experience. For hell and oblivion are ideas that you made up, and you are bent on demonstrating their reality to establish yours. If their reality is questioned, you believe that yours is, for you believe that attack is your reality, and that your destruction is the final proof that you were right. And this is like, I love when he speaks directly to us, because I think that it's so often unconscious to us how much we've bought into ego thought system. And when he speaks directly to you like saying that you believe that attack is your reality. I mean, sometimes we just go through our life not recognizing that, how much we bought into it.
That's very true. And, it's astonishing how much we will defend our fear, and how much we will resist the idea that you could even have thoughts like this. And that's where you have to take the course, I think, in small doses and sit with it, because a lot of times we have these multiple layers that are covering all of these very dark thoughts. So when we say to ourselves, oh no, I want heaven, I want all the good stuff, The reality is you haven't really plumbed the depths of your own true nature. So we do have to spend time contemplating what the Course is talking to us about. And we have to be willing to try and silence ourselves as much as possible to listen to what's actually going on within ourselves so that we can bring these thoughts to the surface and eventually escape from them.
Yeah, because we have to look at the whole that what the ego has made and all the thoughts that we are holding before we can actually release them, right? Otherwise, they just sort of go obscured and unnoticed inside of us.
Exactly. They go back to that comfort zone because we don't want to stir up the pot. And you know, a lot of times the Course in Miracles can have the effect of being like when you go out and pick up a rock and throw it at a hornet's nest. It's like, damn, look at that. But within all that turmoil, eventually you begin to recognize that you were the hornets and you had just subverted that in your own mind. So looking at section 3 here, it says, under the circumstances, would it not be more desirable to have it been wrong, even apart from the fact that you were wrong? While it could perhaps be argued that death suggests there was life, no one would claim that it proves there is life. Even the past life that death might indicate could only have been futile if it must come to this. And that's something that I think everybody at some point comes to the recognition of. You know, if God created life, then why does it culminate in death? It seems like a ripoff. It seems like a bad deal. It's like, you know, going to Mickey D's and getting 2 pieces of bread and not having the beef in between. And that's what makes us. Yeah, that's what makes us realize that this can't be real if God is a loving God. So you question heaven, but you do not question this. Yet you could heal and be healed if you did question it. Wow, that's pretty profound in itself, just asking questions. And even though you know not heaven, might it not be more desirable than death? You have been as selective in your questioning as in your perception. An open mind is more honest than this. So a little bit of a rebuke here. He's telling us that we have dumbed ourselves down and we need to open our minds at least a teeny tiny bit.
Yeah, and this again, even before I found the Course, I felt like I already had an open mind, but when I read lines like this, I was like, oh, I guess I have to open it even more, because it was helping me to recognize those places where I took things for reality without questioning them. I just took things about my experience to be true without giving them any sense of like fair self-inquiry.
Exactly. Yeah, we definitely numb ourselves, and then when something comes along that stirs that up within us, it can be a crisis. It really can be. But if you're in crisis right now and you're working with the Course, just be of good cheer, because eventually you'll come out on the other side. And the waters are incredibly pure and tranquil on the other side of the storm.
Very true. Line 4 says, the ego has a strange notion of time, and it is with this notion that your questioning might well begin. The ego invests heavily in the past, and in the end believes that the past is the only aspect of time that is meaningful. Remember that its emphasis on guilt enables it to ensure its continuity by making the future like the past, and thus avoiding the present. By the notion of paying for the past in the future, the past becomes the determiner of the future, making them continuous without an intervening present. For the ego regards the present only as a brief transition to the future, in which it brings the past to the future by interpreting the present in past terms. So past, 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 recycling the same film roll over and over again seems to be the ego's main intent.
Yes, and this is why we want to step away from the idea of karma. See, the people run around here saying, oh, this is karma. I want some good karma. I am avoiding bad karma. Well, really, that all it is just keeping the pendulum swinging from, emotional high to emotional low, from fear and loathing to, oh my goodness, this feels so good. But it doesn't get you out of that ongoing pattern of back and forth, back and forth. So this is kind of exploding our investment in karma, if you really take to heart the words here, because it is getting us to that reality that the past and the future really are figments of our imagination to begin with. They're not real. And anchoring ourselves in the present moment is really what we need to be doing, rather than trying to dodge the bullet of the future or outrun the condemnation of the past.
And do you want to keep going here, or just let me know when you're ready to wrap?
Yeah, I think we'll maybe go on with number 5 and then wind it down for today.
Okay.
And number 5. Let's see, did I just finish?
Oh, I just finished it, so your turn now.
Okay, number 5 says, now has no meaning to the ego. And that's kind of interesting. If you really observe yourself, you're always projecting into the past or into the future. The present merely reminds it of past hurts, and it reacts to the present as if it were the past. The ego cannot tolerate release from the past, and although the past is over, the ego tries to preserve its image by responding as if it were present. So it's very easy to get into that trap of fantasizing about the past and how you would fix it or how you would like to re-experience it. And I think that's something that we're all guilty of too, is that need to stay in present moment. It dictates your reactions to those you meet in the present from a past reference point, obscuring their present reality. So it traps people. It doesn't allow people to grow and evolve and transcend their own boundaries. And I think that's one of the ugliest aspects of the way the ego operates. In effect, if you follow the ego's dictates, you will react to your brother as though he were someone else. And this will surely prevent you from recognizing him as he is. And you will receive messages from him of your own past, because by making it real in the present, you are forbidding yourself to let it go. You thus deny yourself the message of release that every brother offers you now. So by doing this, we keep ourselves trapped in the past also. And that's why we can't forgive ourselves for our little screw-ups.
Yeah, and so in terms of suggestion for moving on from that, it's always like clicking the refresh button on our state of being, always clicking the refresh and being willing to look at things with fresh eyes and seeing everything with innocence again.
Yes, and especially people and animals and things like that. Whatever it is in your world that is exhibiting the presence of life, you have to see that life in the here and now. If you're referencing history, then you're trying to drag a corpse into the present moment. And that really is kind of a dark image, the dawn of the dead, the zombie land.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is that it's really easy to label someone as this or that, a sort of perpetrator in some way. and it keeps the rest of us victims or whatever. But I think what's just as important as that person evolving is for us to perceive them with innocence. It's just as important for that person to actually find redemption for themselves.
Yes, absolutely. Anybody who looks upon somebody else with the eyes of condemnation, since there is only one mind here, it's reflected into, you know, everybody's consciousness, the one consciousness. So it just gets uglier and uglier, and that's what we've got, you know, 10,000 years of recorded history that's all about. It's all pretty ugly.
And I think it's all about learning how to not take it as seriously whenever that kind of evidence appears in our environment or from people in our world that, you know, that we need to be judging them or condemning them. We just like have to learn to detach and learn to hit the refresh button again at that point.
Yep. Step out of it, step away from it.
Right.
Well, Stephen, it was a wonderful chat today, and in 1 week we'll continue with this dialogue about the guiltless world and hopefully accelerate our journey in that direction.
Absolutely. And hopefully for anyone watching this that you'll, you know, feel free to share it, like it, comment on it, or ask any kind of questions you'd like to ask.
Well, we will see you guys in 1 week, and get out there and share the love, spread the love around, and we'll all take a step upward together.
Yep. I'll see you next week then, Chris.
Great. Bye.
Okay. Bye.